Hi, I'm Andre, and I'm a black nerd, and I'm here with a very special guest.
I'm Howard Phillips. I was Nintendo's game master back in the Donkey Kong and Nintendo 8-bit days. Lucasfilm as creative director, and Microsoft Xbox helped launch that, and now I'm at IndieCade.
What got you eventually to be this game legend at Nintendo?
It had to be the games. No, I was just a big game player like all of us were, right? I started out with Donkey Kong, the arcade game. They had Donkey Kong arcade games in the warehouse where I worked, so I played them a lot. Told Mr. Arakawa, the president of Nintendo, what I thought. And so whenever we get in a new game, I'd tell him what I thought of the game. And then he started asking me more and more. And then we got the Famicom system, the Japanese 8-bit Nintendo. And then we got the NES, the first one before it even shipped in the US. And he asked me to help him pick out the titles that we'd ship in the US. And then things kind of went from there. We did the Nintendo Power magazine. We did the Fun Club. It was a lot of fun.
It came out at a time when it was kind of questionable that video games in general were going to be around, or it's like we had the crash and things like that. What do you feel was the reason behind Nintendo kind of making a resurgence to video games?
Video games are fun, and they were. It's just actually some of the games like the Atari 2600 and the 5200, the games were really weak compared to the games you could play in the arcade.
Well, it's true, because I had an Atari 2600 before my Nintendo, and Donkey Kong on Nintendo looked like Donkey Kong. On Atari, it looked like a brown box with a bigger brown box.
A lot of people got burned by that, like the adults who bought the systems and then got them for their kids for Christmas, or the retailers, and then they didn't sell. And so that made it a really tough market to sell into, and that's why Nintendo came out with Rob the Robot. Remember? Wait a minute, he's going to move. I'm not done, wait. Now I'm turning right. Oh no, I turned left. Oh no, back right. So we did that because it was the entertainment system, right? Rob the Robot, and then also the Zapper, the light gun, was to sell entertainment as opposed to a video game system, because parents wouldn't buy that, retailers wouldn't buy it. Nobody cared about the robot. Nobody cared about the kids didn't care about the robot or the Zapper. The parents thought it was cool. You know, they'd say, "Oh, are you sure you don't want to play with the robot again? You know, here he goes, watch." And the kid would, be halfway through Super Mario's by the time they got him from, no, darn it, he went left again. It was just a mechanism to help everybody know that it was something new and different. But actually, at the time, it was a lot better than the Atari 2600 or 5200, because just the technology in the lunchbox and the Nintendo game system made it look exactly like the games that we were shipping in the arcades. So everybody thought it was super cool. Well, the kids thought it was super cool to play those games, not Rob the Robot.
Yeah. You were a famous figure in Nintendo Power because you were a comic character, Howard and Esther. So tell me how that came about.
The magazine was all about just sharing great game tips and information about the games, but it was 32 pages long. That's a heck of a lot of turning pages, and if it was all the same, it would get old. So what we did is we tried to come up with creative ways of giving more tips out. And one of the ideas, well, what would you do if you were in a shopping mall, Howard, and you're helping out a kid? And I said, well, I'd look at the kid, and he would try and ignore me because he didn't want the information. He'd say, I know that, but I'd give the tip anyway, and then he'd kind of like, okay, and then he'd do it. We just came up with the idea of doing a comic of that same shtick, of me offering up the tip, but the kid saying, he didn't need it, when actually he really did. NES, of course, NESTER, goofy stuff. We thought we were so clever. It's funny in retrospect. People ask me, is Nestor real? And I said, yeah, he's you. He was every kid back then was Nestor.
I liked his hairstyle. That's all I wanted. I wanted those little red spikes.
That little rooster thing.
Yeah. What is Howard's favorite game?
Classically, it's got to be Legend of Zelda. And the reason being is because back then, games started out with just one board, Radar Scope or Pac-Man or something, which gets very boring because all you have to do is go across the street, then you just wait for the cars to stop, run, and you make it across the street, right? I mean, it's fun the first time, but the second or third time you go, well, okay, here's the trick. Wait for the cars to stop. Okay, here we go, right? I mean, so
you just explained Frogger.
Right, exactly, right? That's it. And then they had 4 boards with Donkey Kong. 4 different boards in one game. Wow! It's like, and then you started having games where they just scroll forever, like Mario Brothers. Well, we felt like they would scroll forever. You just play and play and play. It was so cool. I'm going the wrong way. This way, right? And then Zelda came out. And Zelda had this huge world. And not only that, you could go down into the world, into the dungeons,
Yes.
right? You go get the bombs because he could kill the dodongos. Use the bombs on them, and you put a bomb down, and you get them, yeah. And then it would blow a hole in the wall, and you go like, oh no! It was so unbelievable when that stuff would happen. It was like your whole world changed with one moment of play. So I really look back to that as being one of my kind of best games ever because I had so much fun playing it.
Howard loves Legend of Zelda, hates Frogger.
The cars are about to stop. If you're ready, come on, get
What do you think was specifically about Nintendo that brings so much nostalgia over just gaming in general?
Back then, games were all games just because they were fun to play, not because they had great packages or not because they had $20 million marketing budgets. It was really just Nintendo was the only game in town. All the licensees were making games as good as possible. And then when they came out great, we just talk about them. And so we remember all the great games, that we could play back then. And then kind of since then, things have gotten much more kind of mercenary and we're told what to buy and, we buy it because it's supposed to be good and then maybe it's not as fun. But back then it was just, like simple, really good game mechanics, fun to play. I loved the classic Nintendo controller as opposed to things that are fun because, ooh, it's pretty, or ooh, it sounds like, or boy, that character is very interesting, makes me introspective. No, it's because they're just pure gaming fun.
Do you feel like that's missing in some of the current games? Do you feel like people get so focused on the graphics or the story or crazy cutscenes that sometimes just the fun of a game sometimes gets missing?
Oh yeah, unfortunately, yeah, it gets lost. Not to say that like really great and creative art is not an important part of the medium, or great audio or great music, etc. It's all really important. But the problem is that sometimes you'll end up with X amount of resource, money or time or what have you. People say, well, we don't know how to make the game any better, but we know we can add another big scene here. We know that if we spend another 2 weeks, we can make it a new environment. And that new environment, if you're not having fun in the first environment of the game, why do you want to go to the next level and say, well, this one's even worse than that one was, right? So, it's just hard.
It's like having a bad girlfriend. It's like, well, she changed her hair color, so that makes her... I'm just saying, if she's a bad girlfriend, just because she went from brunette to blonde doesn't mean now she's better. It just means she's still... I'm now just made myself dateless. So Nintendo still going on. The Wii U's about to come out. Do you feel like that they still kind of have that innovation that you remember being there, or do you feel like that they've changed a bit over time?
They still got Miyamoto. He's an extremely talented guy who, in his heart, he's all about you and me and the games. He wants to make games that game players like to play, and he works really hard at that. And so that's their greatest asset. That said, they've got all this big corporate marketing stuff that says, we've got to be better than those guys, we've got to be better than those guys. And those things are really hard for them to kind of manage that, while at the same time encouraging and supporting Miyamoto and others within the company to come up with really great new gaming experiences. I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful, but it's not a slam dunk. They got to work. They got a lot of hard work to do.
Can you tell people where people can find you online?
All of my notoriety at Nintendo was in print and on television interviews and stuff. Prior to the internet coming out, I found all these boxes of stuff from the 80s and the early 90s that have got all this stuff that I just never threw away. So I'm unpacking them and putting them up on Facebook, on Game Master Howard on Facebook, so that people who like retro games and stuff can, be reminded of all the fun and cool stuff for back then. So I've got brochures for Now You're Knitting with Power. I've got the original Nintendo brochure before they called it the NES. They called it the AVS, so I put that up there for people to see. Game cartridges for games that are prototyped that were never released before. I found a guy who's writing kind of nostalgic versions of the old comics, only he's doing new versions of those. So it's really just a way to kind of share all the fun of retro gaming.
That's awesome. I look forward to seeing this stuff on Facebook and seeing you in comic form again. I've already liked you on Facebook, so...
I liked you as well, so we're even.
Yay! He's a Black Nerd Comedy fan. I'm so excited. I got the email from you guys. Howard wants to talk to you, and so then he actually calls me, and I'm just like, oh, hello. Hey, it's Howard Phillips. Oh, that was a highlight of my day. I appreciate that.
Oh, you bet. Well, it's been great spending time with you and getting to know you. So thank you.
Same to you. Thank you so much. Yeah. Be sure to check out Howard on Facebook. Watch all the new comics and all the cool stuff that he's going to be putting up online. And I wish you the best. Bye. Run. I'm running across the street now. Thanks to Nintendo Power, I learned how to play Super Mario Bros. 3. Learned my favorite cartoons were getting video games. Learned my favorite video games were getting cartoons. Learned the Game Boy was getting a camera.